Hi, and welcome to another episode of Your Future, Your Finances. I'm your host, Brian Kuhn. We have a great guest for you today. We're speaking with Jon Dauphine of the Foundation for Financial Planning. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I want to read this. The Foundation for Financial Planning is the nation's only 501c3 nonprofit charity solely devoted to powering pro bono financial planning. And you're the director of it, so
yes,
welcome
indeed.
to the show.
Thank
Based
you very
in
much.
the D.C. area?
Yes, we are. Yep.
And it's a nationwide organization?
It is. It is. We recently moved the organization from Atlanta, Georgia, so we're in D.C. now. We have a new home, a new team, but we're really building on a great legacy that's been in place for the last 22 years.
Okay, great. And so what exactly does the organization do?
Yeah, well, just to hark back to our history, we were started 22 years ago by financial planners who were just passionate about giving back to their communities. And they really looked at the legal profession as somewhat of an analog in terms of, we can do this in financial planning. We can bring our skills and our talents to underserved people who normally couldn't access, what we do. And provide real value to these folks to help them get ahead of their finances, get back in control, and improve their lives. So back in that period, they decided to create an endowment, a lasting legacy. They were talking to their peers, their colleagues, and to companies. And over time, they were able to build up a nice endowment that we now use to fund grants to many different nonprofits that have terrific programs that connect financial planners to people in crisis or in need to help them get back on track.
Wonderful. Yeah, that pro bono, that's like a legal term. It has a connotation to that. But it's basically planners who work with people and not necessarily in a business arrangement.
Exactly. It's about giving your talents for free to people who need them, just to provide community service and to help them. And the great thing about pro bono financial planning, it's still relatively new. If you compare it to the law. But it got a big boost after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. The movement really dove in to help first responders, to help victims' families get back on their feet and deal with the terrible aftermath of the attacks. And it really picked up steam after that. And so now we help populations from all different walks of life, military, wounded veterans, domestic violence survivors, people with cancer or serious illness. A whole range of individuals who, again, couldn't access a planner but could really benefit from ethical, objective financial advice.
Yeah, wonderful. So who contributes to the foundation?
Yeah, so we have a mix of contributors. It really tends to be passionate supporters from the financial planning profession. About 60% of our support is corporate, so it comes from companies that are very concerned about helping those in need, and about 40% from practitioners, from financial planners and independent financial planning firms. We tend, if you look at our corporate support, often it comes from big organizations that do a lot of custody for financial planners and that want to show they have a commitment to the profession and to helping the profession give back. So if you look at my board, for example, Schwab, Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, and Pershing, all big players in this space, and all of them are contributors.
Okay. And you spoke a little bit about the types of people who really benefit from it, but who's a typical receiver of this pro bono planning?
Yeah, well, and actually we have a great story on our website, a video of a family that benefited a great deal from pro bono financial planning. And this was a guy who had done service in Iraq, and while there was severely injured, and he came back, and his wife, who was working, they had 3 kids, had to quit her job to become a caregiver. This individual lost a leg, so had to be, tended to for many months in a hospital and then a rehabilitation center. And during the course of this, the debt piled up, and they really were in dire financial straits. So the foundation enabled them to connect with the planner, and over time, really get back in control, to reduce their debt, and they were able to qualify for a program because they mastered their finances that ended up giving them a free, specially built home that made that made kind of special provisions for Tony's disability, so it's a great success story. It's on our website. It's one of thousands of examples, though, of people who've benefited. Often, again, looking at issues of credit and debt. These folks don't tend to have multi-million-dollar investment portfolios, but it's really about nuts and bolts. So we tell our financial planner volunteers it's really easy to provide service to these folks. You don't have to know, I think sometimes there's an intimidation factor, but you don't have to know huge amounts of new information to be able to serve these populations. Often it's just nuts and bolts, and it's a mix of planning out the future, looking at scenarios, and then coaching. A lot of emotional support we find can be helpful, and the programs we fund can be anything from a triage clinic where a person meets with the planner for an hour one time, or it could be a coaching relationship that lasts for a year or more, really depending on what the program looks like and what the volunteer wants to commit to.
Yeah, fantastic. And the typical volunteers, so they're, like you said, they're typical financial planners in the communities?
Yeah, so a lot of times it's just regular folks, financial planners who want to give back, and they say, how do I do this? A lot of times they tap into opportunities through the FPA chapter network. About 80% of the volunteers are FPA members, but you don't have to be to do this kind of work. And what we find is, it's a mix in terms of commitment. About half would like to give about 1 to 2 hours a month, and that's great, but about 10% give 6 hours or more a month. So you really see a spectrum of time commitment. And then when we looked at the demographics, it's a bit more diverse than the financial planning profession as a whole. So you see women, younger planners, planners of color are a bit more represented in the volunteer pool.
Good.
But overall, it's a very diverse mix of people who want to be doing this work.
Good. We've got to take a break already. We'll continue that topic. We're speaking with Jon Dauphine of the Foundation for Financial Planning. We'll be right back. You're watching Your Future, Your Finances.